Freedom is a core concept that most Americans use to define their country. The ability to make liberated decisions and actions is fundamental to the nation's roots. However, there are times when those freedoms become questionable. Is obscenity freedom of expression? Citizens value their right to express their opinions and beliefs peaceably without repercussion. Sans that ability, the country would not effectively function as a democracy. This right is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The amendment is as stated: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. There has been significant controversy over whether many issues are protected by this right, and said controversy has led to mass arrests and many court appeals. There are arguments over whether obscene, hateful speech should be protected by the First Amendment. They claim that, because it is hateful and offensive to the majority of citizens, it should not be allowed. A good example of this happening is the situation with the Westboro Baptist Church protesting a homosexual United States Marine's funeral with obscene signs and messages regarding his sexual orientation. Matthew A. Snyder was killed in action and had revealed himself to be homosexual previously. Because of this, the Westboro Baptist Church decided to protest his military funeral and the general existence of homosexuality simultaneously. The family of Matthew Snyder was highly distressed by the church's protesting of their relative's funeral. Albert Snyder, Matthew's father, decided to take action and file a lawsuit against Fred Phelps, the leader of the church. Snyder took the case, known as Snyder versus Phelps, to court and eventually was able to have it reviewed by the Supreme Court. After much deliberation, the court ruled that the Westboro Baptist Church's actions were, in fact, protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. Their reasoning behind this decision was that, as said by Chief Justice John G. Roberts, Jr., debate on public issues should be robust, uninhabitable, and wide open. Because this speech was over a public issue that everyone should be aware of, the issue of homosexuality was deemed one of valid protest under the circumstances. Justice Roberts explained that speech is a powerful tool that can move people to many emotions, including that of anger and offense, and that we cannot react to pain by punishing the speaker. Albert Snyder adamantly argued that the church was guilty of intentional emotional distress. But the Supreme Court ruled that, although the speech was hateful, it occurred in a contained, peaceful manner at the appropriate distance from the event, making the instance of obscenity protected by freedom of expression. There have been other cases of obscenity that have ended differently, however. In Paterson, New Jersey, a judge ruled that first-grade teacher Jennifer O'Brien ought to be fired for a Facebook posting that accused her students as being future criminals. Even though she said she did not deliberately consider her students to all be future criminals, it was still ruled that it was a statement that went against the nature of her job as an educator and created a negative atmosphere that conflicted with the school's mission. Recently, the country has been impacted by the nationwide protests of the current government by means of occupying state grounds known as the Occupy movement. This movement has truly challenged the First Amendment, as many protesters have been arrested or assaulted by police officers. In most cases, the occupiers have been able to use the law to their advantage and found loopholes that allow them to maintain occupation. However, in other cities, such as Oakland, California, occupiers have not been so fortunate. The Snyder versus Phelps case set a precedent for these forms of protests, and the amount to which that precedent will hold up remains to be seen. Thus, when it comes down to it, as long as the speech of any person is peaceable and contained, relates to a matter of public concern, and does not violate any sort of professional conduct, it is protected by the First Amendment, regardless of the amount of obscenity it includes.